Hey guys, Colleen here, DIYer behind LemonThistle.com, and today I'm excited to talk all about staining this fence. Building this fence and staining this fence are one of the projects that we took on in our full exterior makeover. So far in this exterior makeover series, we've shared our patios, the before and afters of those. We've shared the playhouse build that we built up for the kids, and we've also shared the exterior front entry makeover, which is part of residing the whole house. We also spent quite a bit of time on landscaping last year, and I quickly realized after planting lots of beautiful flowers that we have a lot of deer that like to eat those flowers. So I am really excited for this fence, not only to replace the very aesthetic chicken wire that was here, but the deer could just walk right through that and knock it over and eat all my flowers, and now I have a real fence that I hope is going to keep them out of my garden. So in this video, I'm going to be giving some tips on staining a fence with a paint sprayer. I partnered with Wagner Spray Tech for this video, and I used their FLEXiO 5000 for this project. I actually stained our fence on the other side of this yard last year. That worked really well. I learned a lot doing that, so I was much more confident to take it on this year on this side of the house. I feel like I did a much better job, and I definitely picked up some more tips, so I'm feeling really confident and would love to share some of those tips with you guys today if you want to take on a staining project with your paint sprayer. Before we get into it, if you have not yet subscribed to my channel, I would so love if you did that below so you don't miss out on any more DIY or home decor videos. All right, so the first thing that I did here is prepped this fence. Now, one of the things that you might notice about different fence boards is they put like a wax coating on the end with the brand stamped on. So I just sanded those off just so that the stain could penetrate since those ends were showing. And then I just loosely knocked off the slivers with a sandpaper. I think I used just 100 grit here just to knock off the really rough pieces around the screw holes. And I did this by hand here with this sanding block because it fit really perfectly in between the boards. We got rough cut cedar. Lumber is really hard to come by right now, and it looks beautiful, but there were a lot of slivers. So I just wanted to knock those off since our kids play with the kid on the other side of the fence all the time. I didn't want to have to be picking slivers out every single day like I have been since we put up this fence. Then, of course, you need to remove all the dust instead of pressure washing it, because after pressure washing wood, you need to wait about a week for it to dry out completely before staining. I just knocked all of the sawdust off with the air compressor. All right, then you can get to masking. I didn't take any video of masking. We really fought the wind on this. We actually ended up waiting for a calmer day to spray after we masked, so you can see the paper is pretty wrinkly in spots, just out of an abundance of caution with the two lighthouses on either side of this fence. But masking is just covering up all the areas you want to make sure to get no overspray on. All right, so beyond masking, let's talk about stain. So I used this stain here. We just went to the hardware store and looked at what they had. This one came tinted already like this. I think it's called Acorn Brown. One of the things that I do look for when I am choosing a stain to use with my paint sprayer is, in this case, I wanted a stain and sealer in one. So this is an all-in-one waterproofing stain, which is great. I just want to do one coat and be done. The other thing that I look for is soap and water cleanup. So you can get stains where you have to use paint thinner or mineral spirits or whatever kind of heavy duty things to clean out your tools and your paintbrushes. And I really wanted to avoid that. I love just being able to wash out my paint sprayer and be done. All right, so after you load your stain in there, you can adjust your settings. And I always like to test my settings on either a scrap piece of wood, a piece of cardboard, or in this case, the flooring paper we'd put over our concrete retaining wall. So the settings that I like to use for stain are I like to throw the material flow all the way down to 1 or 2. I think I ended up using 1 most of the time on here, and then I put the air pressure pretty high. You can lower the airflow a little bit, but I generally kept my airflow around 7 or 8, and I kept my paint flow around 1 or 2. So once I was happy with the spray pattern there, then I got to staining the fence. Now, one thing I will note, if you are having spattering or if you are having other issues like that, it's probably not your settings. It's probably the cap on your paint sprayer. Do you see that yellow piece that you can see from here that turns it from vertical to horizontal spray? If that is not fully clipped on, you're definitely going to see some paint spattering. That's one of the comments I get messaged about pretty often in my Instagram DMs, is that people are having trouble with spattering. And that's the one thing that I have noticed when I'm having that issue. It's almost always that I've assembled this incorrectly. Okay, other than that, I did just want to give a few tips. And again, these are in response to things that I do get messaged about quite often. So when you are using a paint sprayer for paint or for stain, you do want to keep moving at all times. So at the top here, when you transition over to the other board, you can either let the trigger off or you can kind of spray off of your surface. So you see I spray down onto the paper and then move over so that I don't end up with darker patches or lap marks, you know, where you spray the same spot twice and it gets a little bit darker. I like to let the edges of the spray pattern naturally blend instead of overlapping where I'm spraying. You can see here on this fence, there is gaps between the fence boards. The other fences that I did not have these gaps, but what that means is that you would have to get in there with a paintbrush, or you have to spray at an angle to hit those edges. So this is one of the questions that I get asked all the time is, well, the paint sprayer only gets the front surface and I need to get the grooves too. And yeah, absolutely. You need to aim the paint sprayer exactly at what surface you want covered. So aiming just at the board isn't going to cover the sides as well, right? And so just like a spray paint, if you angle your sprayer to spray the sides of the boards and then go through and do the other sides of the boards, like I'm doing here, then you'll get even coverage, even in those gaps between the fence boards. You can also see on the back side of the fence here, the neighbor's side, they have the 2x4 on their side. So I changed my spray pattern from horizontal to vertical, and I sprayed that and got down underneath it with that vertical spray pattern before doing my horizontal up and down pattern on the boards. I found that this gave a beautifully even coverage on the 2x4. So we actually stained this fence today. We stained our side and the neighbor's side, and then we went over to a friend's house and stained their fence and their neighbor's side. And I am just curious if that is common where you live as well. Is that just a Canadian thing, or is that universal, that when you're doing one side of the fence, you offer to do the other? Let me know in the comments. I'm just interested to hear how that might vary. So here is the second fence that I did, and this one here is a friend's house. They recently installed this fence. It's a beautiful cedar, and so they wanted to keep it pretty natural. So they had this stain tinted. Again, it's a water cleanup stain. It's a waterproofing stain, and because they have no gaps between their boards, this one went so fast. So I just had to spray the surface of the fence. So again, I did this side and I did the neighbor's side. It went pretty quick. The most time consuming part is masking, and then the staining itself goes really quick. And now you can see how beautiful these fences look. Super easy to do once you kind of play with your paint sprayer and get the settings right. You move really fast. So I hope that this answers some questions. I hope that this encourages you that yes, you can do it if you're thinking of staining your fence with a paint sprayer. And I am just hopeful that this keeps the deer out of my garden so I can have lots of tulips in my house this spring. Thank you so much for watching. I hope that you enjoyed this video. If you did, make sure to give it a thumbs up and subscribe so you don't miss out on any more DIY or home decor videos. We'll see you next time.